Thanks for staying with us. So on this segment, we shall continue to discuss the nationwide protest with our attention on the FCT, Kano, and Kaduna, where the protest is reportedly going south. Joining us right now is the former federal lawmaker and human rights activist, Senator Shehu Sani. He will be speaking to us about the situation, especially in the north, especially in the northwest, most importantly, Kaduna. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So in the last 24 to 48 hours, we've seen protests in the north take a different dimension. Some have said that this is no more about bad governance. Protest is more about a regime change. Some of the CDS has described it as treason, especially because of the hoisting of the Russian flag. In your view, what's going on in Kaduna right now, and what do you make of all that's happened in the last 48 hours?
Thank you very much. Well, the protest that took place in northern part of Nigeria differs in every form with the one that is taking place in southern part of Nigeria. Even though the title is End Bad Governance, but what we have seen in the north is not peaceful protest, but people called out to protest without any form of leadership, and it degenerated into violence. What you have seen in Kano is what happened in Jigawa, what happened in Yobe State, and also our experience in Kaduna State. In other states in the south, you can see leaders of protest identifying themselves and leading their other protesters. But in the case of the north, young people and women were called out to protest, and those who called them out to protest refused to make themselves available as leaders of those protests. And then this crowd started attacking public infrastructure, looting private businesses, snatching phones, and molesting passerby and seizing their motorcycles. So for us in the north, it's not a peaceful protest. Those who call this protest, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, hide themselves, and then we all end up where we are. You can see Russian flags being shared. It happened in Kano and then later in Kaduna State. Well, 2 nights before that protest, money was shared, everyone knows it in Kaduna State, to most of these protesters, and then flags were distributed. I share the belief that people have the right to protest as an activist, and I also believe that those who are protesting against high cost of living are right. And I believe that peaceful protest is a democratic right. And those who are out to protest have the right to do it. And I believe that people should protest peacefully.
Yeah.
But what we have seen here in our state is simply violence, and this is the result of it.
Right.
So we saw a police armor tank also hijacked yesterday. Has this become totally overwhelming of our security agencies? Is it totally unabateable, or is there hope of things improving?
I beg your pardon?
We saw a police armor tank seized yesterday up north, and we saw all the protesters, so-called allegedly, on the armor tank. Can we arrest this situation up north right now? Is it something that can be arrested, or is it insurmountable?
Well, what you have seen in as the case of the police armored vehicle being seized, I think the police were exercised restraint, because the alternative of stopping the seizure of that armored vehicle is to fire on protesters and kill as many people. But I think the police now took the wisdom of allowing the vehicles to be taken over, and later they took control. But what we have seen yesterday was different from what happened in the first and second day of the protest. And this is what happens when protests are called without leaders making themselves visible. Banks were attacked, government offices were attacked, people themselves who are simply in their houses were also attacked by these protesters. So I think if this continues, the whole essence of the protest and the value of it is lost. Because if it is about high cost of living, if it's about economic hardship, at least you should raise Nigerian flags or symbolically or with creativity raise empty plates and pots. But the Russian flag shows that those who are promoting, encouraging, and funding the protests in the North has other ulterior motives, which was simply instigating military coup, anarchy, violence, lawlessness, and disorder. This is what we have in North. And one of the reasons why we caution those who call for this protest, especially in the North, is that there should be a leadership that will drive the process. When you have leaders in the forefront of the struggle, they will guide the crowd, telling them that we are moving from point A to point B, and the protest starts from 8 a.m. and ends by 4 p.m. But all these things are not available. They simply unleashed a monster, and now we are bearing the consequences in our state. And the protest was never a peaceful one.
Okay, so for me, I sort of really worry. I worry because it seems like the states involved have the political actors seemingly complicit because there isn't a strong enough message to stop the ongoing riots, because it's no longer a protest, it's vandalism, it is riot, it is... when you hold a flag, obviously somebody brought the flag out. So is it that we are having a politically motivated crisis in the North?
Well, there are about 6 factors that lead to peaceful protests transforming into violence. And I can set them. The first factor is when the security apparatus of the states use live bullets against peaceful protesters. That can degenerate into violence. Secondly is when protest leaders have no control of their own followers. That can degenerate to violence. The third is when thugs infiltrate protesters, you will have violence. The fourth aspect is when sponsored thugs are set against peaceful protesters, you will have violence. The fifth aspect is when you have people with ulterior motives other than the issue of high cost of living, you will have violence. The sixth aspect of it is that when protest is not organic, it's funded to achieve a certain purpose, then it was not for what was publicly advertised. There are ulterior or hidden agenda behind such protests. So the protests in Abuja and the southern part of Nigeria was peaceful, but that of the north was actually violent. And I don't blame anyone other than the organizers for not being in the forefront to protect their protesters and also to direct them on what to do. Okay. And I think it's important that protests like this must have a direction and also must have rules. This is not our first experience in protest. ASU has been protesting, Labour has been protesting, NANS have protesting. Protests should have rules of engagement. You protest for 3 days, you call it off, and then you raise a team to dialogue. And then among the demands, if it's 10, you may achieve 5, and then you set a date. If the other 5 are not achieved, we are going to return back to the street in October or November. But what we have here is simply calling out young people and women to the street and setting them against an armed apparatus and then unleashing them against other persons.
Right, okay.
Billions of naira was lost, lives were lost, and then this is, what can we say is the benefit of what has happened in northern part of Nigeria?
Okay.
Okay, so this pains me a lot because I am a northerner, right? And we're supposed to be prepared for this because this is not the first time this kind of thing is happening. In fact, the North cannot afford to have protests right now. The protests, they've been saying this thing that there's going to be protests, there's going to be protests. Our governors are supposed to have been ready because we know that especially in Kaduna, we have those places, we call them red flags. We know that those places, we have, let's say, yes, thugs, or like call them thugs or something that will cause mayhem to Kaduna. We know it. I can remember the last time there was riots in Kaduna in 2000. I think in 2000, back then in 2000, it was terrible. It was terrible. So right now in the North, we have bandits, we have Boko Haram, we have different things, disturbing the North. We can't afford this kind of riot right now. So I want to ask you, what have the governor or the state police, or what will I say, what have they done so far? They're supposed to have been armed and waiting because it's a normal thing when something like this happens. So what have they done so far? And none of them, they've not even come out to say anything or done anything about it.
Well, first of all, Nigerians have the right to protest. We are a democratic country, and our constitution and the laws of our country guarantees us the right to protest, but to protest peacefully. The responsibility of governors is to make sure that the issues that are raised and that spark of protests are being addressed. And from what we have seen, billions of naira was shared to the governors, and also trucks of rice was shared to the governors. And there could have been a serious engagement with the civil society and the general public before the commencement of the protest. But I don't know how that was done. But in Kaduna State, significant effort was made by the governor of the state, taking cognizance of our history. Kaduna is almost evenly divided between Muslims and Christians. We have a river in the center of the city. The southern part of the river is predominantly Christians, and the northern part is predominantly Muslim. But if you look at what the protest that has happened, it's mostly in the northern part of the river, and we thank God for that. Because if there was no intervention and action taken by the governor of the state to reach out to many persons and also communities there, it could have been worse. So for us, at least whatever has happened could have been worse if there was no engagement. So it is the responsibility of people holding political position in the federal government and also those in the states to have averted this protest. But I believe that many of them did their best. Right. But the organizers of the protest were determined, and this was the result that came out of it.
All right, let me ask you, as regards the presidency on this, because we've seen how Keir Starmer came out very firmly to say, and emphatically, that they'll be clamping down on the rioters in the UK that happened in the last 24 hours. So far, we have the CDS coming out saying that what the hoisting that flag was treason. But what stand or what role do you think the president himself should take? Should he also come out again to speak, or do you expect more leaders to come out against exactly what was done concerning hoisting that flag?
Well, I have had a lot of comments with regards to the flags. But the fact that the protest was about bad governance and the protest was about cost of living, and now you see Russian flags, means that there were ulterior motives behind the issue of cost of living as far as the North is concerned. Russian flags were basically raised in the North. So perhaps it's either that those who organize the protests or who are leading the protests in the North have other intention other than the issue of ending bad governance, or virtually the whole essence of the protests in the North was to instigate a military takeover or anarchy in the country. So the statement from the Chief of Defense Staff and also those from the side of the government on the matter is what is needed now, for them to know that you should raise Nigerian flag. You can be creative in but raising a Russian flag does not make any sense. People say they want to take back their country, and then they are raising Russian flag. So what does that mean?
Right.
So I believe that the action taken is in the best interest of this country. We are not going to be a Russian colony or any colony of any country anymore.
Okay, sir, when we saw the protest start, you know, what we are seeing in Kaduna is not different from what, if not worse, than what we saw in Kano, what we saw in Borno, what we saw in other northern states. Have the Northern Governors Forum, you know, at least they have that, are they, you know, in consensus taking a stand against this?
Well, the problem of North did not start in the last 1.5 years or the last 12 months. The issue of poverty, underdevelopment, illiteracy in northern part of Nigeria was as a result of decades of systemic neglect, exploitation, plunder, and abandonment by the political ruling elites from our own part of the country. Many people who had the opportunity to preside over the affairs of the country from the northern part were not able to, they failed to address the problems of underdevelopment, of hunger, and poverty in the north. So the president now has inherited the people that have been neglected, exploited, plundered, and abandoned for decades. And what you see here is an explosion. After all, the insecurity in northern part of Nigeria is not imported. The bandits and the terrorists are not people from Niger or Algeria or Morocco. These are people from the north. We are from the same ethnic group. Mostly we are from the same religion. And they were people that were neglected, abandoned, and they took up arms now into acts of crime. So if we have anybody to blame, we can't blame those in the saddle of leadership today because they have the levers of power to address issues. But we should mostly blame our own leaders who have been in power for the last 4 decades, who refused or failed to address these developmental and human development issues that could have raised standard of living, educate our people, and address the problems of underdevelopment in our own region. The young people you see, the women you see on the street, were a product of a system that has failed, a leadership that has failed, and mostly those leaders are from our own part of the country. These are the bitter truth we don't want to tell ourselves, and we're trying to find a scapegoat in someone. And the earlier we do that, the better. Kaduna, Kano, and Jos are the most industrialized part of northern Nigeria. 80% of the industries in those areas, those parts of the country, are dead. So who do we blame? And they were not dead in the last 12 months. They had been left to die in the last 20, 30, 40 years. Up to today in the north, our farmers are still planting their crops with their foot. So who do we blame for this? Today in the north, most of the diseases that have since disappeared in other parts of the world are all here in our own part of the country. Leprosy, glaucoma, polio, because some simply felt that each time there's an immunization process, there is an immunization program, they use religion to make sure that they scare people from having access to these facilities and care. So there are issues that are our own that we have to solve, and there are issues that those in the position of power
Senator
should
Shehu,
address.
I don't think you've answered the question concerning.
Today.
I don't think you've answered the question concerning the voice of the northern leaders. We know the issues in the north. We understand the genesis and how long it's been. We're saying, shouldn't there be a voice, either the NGF, the Northern Governors Forum, or either all the leaders in the north have one voice against what is happening currently? Because it's like the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff, has said his own, but we need to hear a leader from the north vehemently, emphatically speak against what is going on. And we've not heard that, so we want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, northern leaders have kept quiet since 2015, Because under Buhari regime, or under Buhari administration, many people in the north kept quiet or remained silent on the issue of governance, on the specter of ethnic, religious, and sectional solidarity. And today, many are finding their voice for the opposite reasons. Now, northern governors are those with the levers of power to now sit down and address the problem. If not them, I don't think much, because it's either you support the protesters now, or you will be told that you have been sponsored or you have been paid. Many religious leaders cautioned on the protests in the north, and the views that went out to the public was that they were being bribed to work against the protests. And now this is the result of it. So with what has happened in North today, northern governors have a duty to sit down and address the problems of the region and present the problem of the region before the president so that these issues can at least be addressed. Okay. We are the ones that are at the helm in Ministry of Education. We are the ones that are at the helm in Ministry of Agriculture. We are the ones that are helm in some sections of the security forces of the country. So the North still has the ability and the capacity to address this problem if it can utilize the opportunity that is at hand today, when it couldn't do it from 2015 to 2023. Okay.
Okay, sir. So you and I, we know that right now in the North, we can't afford protests because of what the North has been going through and all. So I want to ask, other than protest or coming out to protest on the streets, how else can we get our governors or local governments or all the other ones, how do we get them to listen to us and do something for us other than protest?
Well, the only way now is to come back home and probe ourselves and direct our anger and our demands to those who are holding political positions and power, and those in whose custody the resources of the country is before them. We should hold the governors accountable. We should hold the local government chairmen accountable, because at no time in the history of this country
has
the subnational, the state, and the local government level be given such humongous amount of money. And the North must set its priorities, which is poverty. They must invest their money in agriculture, invest in education, so that at least we can get these young people out of the street and into productive activity. The northern governors must sit down and address the problems of poverty and issues of insecurity and developmental issues in northern part of Nigeria, now that they have more money than at any other time in the history of our country.
Okay, so my question, I know that you've already sort of answered a part of this question, in that the reason we are not hearing the sound of northern leaders is because if they say anything, they'll be seen as they have they've been paid. But here's another thing. The people on the streets in Kaduna, in Kano, across the northern states where the crises have happened, didn't just appear on the streets today. They have places where they were sleeping before for the past 2-3 years. I am sure that within the security apparatus and the leaders who want peace in the states, they know the people that they can talk to that will calm the nerves of those boys and young people on the streets. Are the people really willing to calm what is going down, or are they okay with the way things are heating up within the states? And can the security apparatus deal with the ringleaders that can easily be identified, since they've been there since? They didn't just import those boys today. They didn't just show up. Those are marginaries, those boys, people that are protesting, that are demolishing things and burning up things. They've been there for years. Somebody gave them those flags, and those people are known. They're in the system.
Well, the issue of poverty and underdevelopment in the North, like I've said earlier, did not start today. If you can remember, during the time of Buhari's government, the poverty level in Nigeria raised to the point that we had over 135 million people who are said to live below the poverty line, and almost 70% of them are from northern part of Nigeria. But poverty is not an excuse to violence. It's also not an excuse to terrorism. The people of the north are not poorer than the people of Niger, are not poorer people of Benin Republic. They are not also poorer than people of Chad and northern part of Cameroon. Why the violence in our place? Those at the helm of leadership over the years refuse to address these fundamental issues, and now we are living the truth of our failure. We are here today because of what we refused to do yesterday or what we did wrongly yesterday. So it is now for us to look forward, and the only way to look forward is that those in charge of the leadership in the north, the governors specifically, because they are the ones, must take this issue very seriously, learn from this violence and attack it not just by sending police against protesters and police against poor people and killing poor people, but address the problems of poverty in the region, and then everyone can live in peace.
Sir, please.
The poverty in northern part of Nigeria is not only a threat to the north, but it's a threat to the peace of the whole country.
So please, I want to ask you,
look
sir,
at what we are suffering today.
how do you think the leaders within the north can address this issue without sending security, using the security apparatus to curb them? What would be your top 3 or top 5 short-term intervention to bring a bit of calmness to the north and resume economic activities within the north?
Well, first of all, I must restate it very clearly. The police or the army killing young people and women in the street in the north will not address the problem.
I agree.
It may do it temporarily by pushing people back into their homes. But the permanent solution to the problem is that northern leaders should meet in Kaduna, which is the headquarters of the north. Come out with a template of what they need to do to address the issues. First of all, what can they do to address the problems of insecurity? Most of the people who are holding security positions in Nigeria today are still from northern part of Nigeria. Security is one. Secondly is the issue of education. Most public schools in the north have been destroyed over the years, and partly as a result of insecurity or partly as a result of lack of motivation for people to bring their kids to school. Third is the issue of agriculture. The north is the most blessed part of Nigeria. In land mass, we cover about 70%. In population, we all have the numbers. We all have the resources that are natural resources that are all needed to develop the region. So we can't be waiting from manna from heaven. It is us that will address ourselves. And look at what is happening in northern part of Nigeria. Abuja is basically located in the north. But if you look at the businesses, almost 70% of the businesses, private businesses, are people from southern part of Nigeria. So the economy is not just a reason why people are poor, because even if the economy is good, if you don't have a product to sell and you don't have a service to offer, you will still remain a poor man. So it is for the governors of the north to sit down, prioritize on the problems of the region, and use the resources allocated to them to address it. If not, nobody is going to live in peace. We will still be moving from interval of war to another phase of war, and that will not be in the best interest of the country.
All right, let me go on a very short break, Senator. When I come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have with us Senator Shehu Sani. I have a caller holding from Abuja. Josino, thanks for calling. You're live. Go ahead, please.
Sure, thank you very much. Please, I just have something to say about this issue of the flag. Because I noticed that, okay, like, growing up and from one's conception, a flag raised, on one's party determines that, yes, property is under the authority of the flag.
Okay.
This same flag that these boys are carrying around was the same flag that was at the president's national address. So I'm thinking, what is the correlation between that flag, because the flag came out at about the same time or the same time. So I'm wondering, what is the flag? Are people in government aware? Because people, for instance, might not have known that a flag is good to place. But the same flag, I checked the colors and arrangement, and it's the same. So I'm wondering, is the flag?
All right, so the flag behind the president is the military flag. It has a green part of it, so it is blue, red, and white, but it has a green. But this one in particular is a Russian flag. It's not the military, so there are different flags. Senator Shehu, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, Nima has a question for you. Go ahead.
Okay, sir, if this protest continues, and in this dimension that it is going, what should the president do? And what action will the security agencies take? The security agencies seem to be fraternizing with the protesters. Just as we mentioned, they hijacked the armor tank and the police just let them have it and later took it back. What should the security agencies do and what action should the president take?
Well, we don't hope to see the continuation of the protest. Well, protests can continue, but we don't want to see the continuation of violence, especially in our own part of the country. And for now, there are two ways this issue can be addressed. The short term is to ensure that there is restoration of law and order. People's lives and properties are being protected by security forces. The long-term issue is to address the problems of poverty and underdevelopment, which is the root cause of this uprising and unrest you have seen in our own part of the country. Most of these young people are children of poor people, and there is a kind of dynasty of poverty, a poor grandfather, poor father, and then poor children. And this has to be addressed. And this kind of inherited poverty is not a product of what happened today. It has been a long issue. So northern leaders
what of the role of the religious
the long
leaders?
term of it, and then the president.
What of the role of the religious leaders? Because when you mention this generational poverty, there's a strong role that the religious leaders continue to play in, glamorizing the poverty and saying this is the way to get to Jannah, is the will of God. And, discouraging the seeking of education, that will liberate their minds. And we saw, in the last administration, we saw how the Emir Sanusi Lamido Sanusi continuously spoke against this, and we saw what happened to him. What role do you think the religious leaders should do at this time? Because I think they have more influence.
You see, one of the problems we have in northern part of Nigeria is that the North has kept silent for a very long time and refused to hold people who were in power to account simply because they came from our own part of the country. Protests has taken place in the North today, but go back to history and see. From 1999 to 2024 today, how many times has protests against the government took place? There was, during the time of Umar Musa Yar'Adua, there was a Save Nigeria protest, a demand for the president to resign because of his sickness. The North never participated. During the time of Buhari, there was a protest led, even in Abuja here, by Charlie Boy, when Buhari stayed for over 100 days abroad. The North refused to participate. During the NSAS protest, the North refused to participate. Even during the June 12 struggle in 1993, we were the ones who brought the protest to the North, but we got only few people that participated there. But today, they protested against Jonathan. but they couldn't protest against Buhari and Erdogan.
So it's political.
And now the protest is taking place. So you can see that at a time when they need to stand up and speak, many refuse to do that or fail to do that. When I was in the National Assembly, many times I stood up on the floor to speak about insecurity in northern Nigeria. But I get the largest opposition and challenge from my colleagues who are from the north. In their own thought that I was damaging and destroying the image of President Muhammad Buhari, who is a northerner, and I supposed to remain silent. I come from Kaduna State today. Now, we have the northern part of Kaduna, which is us, and then the southern part of Kaduna. The world only know about the killings in southern part of Kaduna because the representatives that are representing those people in the parliament, in the Senate and House of Reps, do stand up and tell the world on how their people are being killed. But those from the north keep quiet because the person who was there is one of us. And they prefer to protect and defend his name, his image, and integrity while our people are being slaughtered. So it also happens in governance. We refuse to hold those in power to account for ethnic, sectional, and religious reasons. And we only do that when it's not someone from our own. And that led us to where we are today. Our people have been neglected. Our people have been impoverished and plundered by different governments of the past.
Senator Shehu, let me be sure I understand you.
And we refuse to do anything.
Senator Shehu, let me be sure I understand you. So because President Tinubu is not a northerner, that's why this northern, so poverty has always been there, but they refuse to protest because it's their own. But because President Tinubu is not a northerner, they have decided to come out to protest. No problem. However, there's a question that Tokwe asked earlier, but I think I'd like us to go back to it. These people didn't just show up overnight. They live and exist in these states. I remember very clearly before the protest started, I live in Lagos. So I know that many local governments, many leaders within the were sensitizing the neighborhood, saying, listen, we know there's hunger in the land. This is what we're doing. Please don't come out to protest. And we saw the effect of their sensitization across the local governments in Lagos State. Now, the question is, did the leaders in the north, in Kaduna especially, did they come out to sensitize the public in line with what the government said? Listen, there's work being done. We know you want to protest. However, these are the situations, because what it looks like is that all the governors just folded their arms and let the boys go out on leash and just have a field day. Nobody was able to prepare for the possibility of riot, carnage that was going to happen in the north. Nobody just took responsibility. Oh, because he's not a northerner, because he's a Yoruba man. Is that what you're saying here?
Now, let me get this fact straight. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is the leader of the country. And every Nigerian has the right to protest against him, even if you are from the north. Northerners voted for him, and they have the right to protest against him. The buck stopped on his table, and he's the leader today. If he addresses the problems of the country, he emerges a hero. If he refuses to address the problem of the country, people have the right to protest. He's a protester. He has a history of protest. So he must respect the right of the people to protest. And he should also address their demands. What I just said was that if this protest that is happening in the north had also happened when other leaders were in power, we couldn't have found ourselves where we are today. But if you are silent yesterday and vocal today, I think you have started late and you shouldn't expect an early result. So what I'm saying is, back to your own issues, monies has been paid to accounts of the state governments, and with the recent Supreme Court ruling, local governments are richer. So people should also hold the governors and the local government chairmen to account, and they should be educated to do that. But as of the north, northern governors should sit down and address the problems of the North, particularly the issues of poverty, which is very important. If we don't address the issue of poverty, there is no police, there is no army, there is no force on earth that can extinguish the fire and rage in the hearts of the people. This is my position.
Okay, please, can you tell us the measures and how we can hold the governors accountable? What steps? How do you want us to do it?
Well, it is generally in the country today, people are more interested in what happens at the federal level than what happens at the federal level. I can tell you that if you go through the net or people in social media, out of every 10 comments you see or 10 posting on X or on Facebook or Instagram, you see it's all 80% of it is about federal government. People don't know much on what is happening in their state assembly. They don't know what their governors are doing. They don't even talk to their own senators and reps. They concentrate on the issue of the president. And it is important that at this time we hold every person in power at all levels to account. I think that is necessary because of the situation we find ourselves today.
Okay, let me go on a very short break. When we come back, we can conclude with our senators. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. Tokwe had a question for the
Yes.
senator?
So, I understand this might be a tough question, but while we were bantering this morning, Ramatu mentioned she's from Kaduna. She has business in Kaduna, and I'm a customer. She was supposed to supply me last week, and she sent a message that due to the protest and curfew, a goods can't come in from Kaduna to Lagos. Several other businesses, even as much as you would say that a lot of the commercial activity might be owned by Southerners, there are northern businesses who are being affected by the current protest, riots, challenge within the north. And they are wondering when, because I told her she should not worry. In a few days, the oil will come. But now I'm worried about how long we will have to wait for this oil to come and how long she would have to wait if our business would be shut down indefinitely until this is resolved. What would you say to that? How would you advise business owners who are suffering loss now and are trying to calculate when things will get better?
Well, first of all, we hope and we pray that the situation calms down and the issues are resolved and that this violence come to an end. But the damage it has done to the north will take many years for it to be addressed. For example, in Kaduna State, there is a man who set up a rice milling farm on the outskirts of Zaria. And this farm, this industry was looted and burnt down. So I wonder who else will think of setting up his businesses in Kaduna and Kano, taking cognizance of what has happened. And sometimes I imagine if Aliko Dangote had established his refinery in Kano or Kaduna, what will have happened in the last few days? So I think all that needs to be done now is to restore law and order and continue to appeal to people to see reason. The North should not be the experimental ground for violence, for anarchy, and for call for military coup. And people who call for protests, if they refuse to lead that protest, nobody should answer or come out and respond to that. That is my own thought. Protest that comes from the North shall be the protest which people of the North shall participate. You cannot sit down somewhere and instigate people to burn their own city, to burn their own town, to burn their own people, to kill their own people, and then you are nowhere to be found. We have to be careful when it comes to protests that are being called in social media. We have thousands and millions of people who will exploit that to unleash mayhem. The monster that has been unleashed against our people now need to be tamed in the interest of peace and security, not of the North, but of the whole country.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up, but I know that Nima had a question here. 2 seconds.
So there are northern appointees within the government of the president. The APC chairman himself is a northerner from Kano. What do you think the president should do, seeing that, they themselves have not spoken up? Because when we talk about the style of this protest and how the North is silent, there are appointees. What is the NSA? Who is from the North? What is he doing? What are they saying? What stand should the president take as against their silence?
Well, it's not, the NSA is not there to speak. He is there to work, to address problems of insecurity, and he is doing his best. I can tell you that in many instances, most of these top leaders of these bandits and terrorists have been decimated. And there are less attacks on our schools. And Kaduna-Abuja road is safer than it used to be. So there are achievements that have been made with the National Security Advisor. As for the chairman of the ruling party, it is left for him, but he needs to speak out. He and other leaders of the North need to converge and address the problems of the region, irrespective of their party affiliation, because we are sitting on a time bomb as far as northern part of Nigeria is concerned.
Okay, final question.
That's just the only thing I can see. I pray that our people will listen to us and at least take this. So I want to ask, what about our celebrities? What are they saying? The likes of them, Ali Nuhu and Su Adam Zango, the Sauron Sumesa, they have not come out to even help one way or the other as well.
I think you should try to invite them.
I don't understand. Thank you, Senator Shehu. I was wondering if you are the consultant for the celebrities in us. But thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you spending your morning with us. We really hope, as you had prayed, and I'm sure your prayer is about hope that peace. That there's peace back in the North. We'll see how today goes, and hopefully things will be peaceful. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we continue with the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.